Today we'll be covering a presentation done this year at the National Meetings for Animal Science, looking at the effects of hard red winter wheat particle size on finishing pig growth performance, as well as digestibility and caloric efficiency. My name is John DeYoung. I'm a PhD candidate here at Kansas State University, and I will be going through the presentation. Just a brief background today before we jump into the study. As we all know, particle size of cereal grains is an important aspect of nutrition, especially when we're considering feed efficiency and performance in finishing pigs. Kim and others in 2005 showed that decreasing wheat particle size improved starch digestibility when wheat was ground from 920 to 580 microns. In addition, Mavromichalis in 2000 showed improved feed efficiency when wheat was ground from 600 to 400 microns. So we see a decrease from 920 to 580 and now from 600 to 400 microns. However, little information is available on fine grinding hard red winter wheat finer than 400 microns. Thus, the objective of our study was to determine the effects of hard red winter wheat particle size on finishing pig growth performance, digestibility, and caloric efficiency, specifically targeting diets with micron sizes under 400 microns. Now, in order to accomplish this objective, a total of 288 pigs, initially weighing just over 43 kilograms, were used in an 83-day study. Pigs were randomly allotted depends upon entry into the finisher, and then were allotted randomly to one of three dietary treatments based on average pen weight. This allowed us to have 8 pigs per pen with 4 barrows and 4 gilts and 9 pens per treatment. The same hard red winter wheat soybean meal based diet was fed in meal form and used for all dietary treatments. Treatments were formed by grinding the wheat to different particle sizes, and these 3 treatments are listed below, with the first treatment showing hammer mill ground wheat ground to approximately 730 microns. In the next treatment, we have hammer mill ground wheat ground to approximately 580 microns, and lastly, hammer mill ground wheat ground to approximately 330 microns. Now, in order to do this, we utilized hammer mill screens, looking at a number 4, a number 8, and a 12 screen, which correlates to a 1.6, 3.2, and 4.9 millimeter opening on the screen. Diets were fed in 3 phases from day 0 to 27, 27 to 60, and 60 to 83, and pigs and feeded were weighed approximately every 2 weeks to determine average daily gain, average daily feed intake, and feed efficiency. Ingredient samples were taken prior to the experiment to determine nutrient and amino acid profile, which was then used during formulation. Feed samples were taken from each feeder during each phase and then combined within treatment and phase for analysis. Bulk density, particle size, and angle of repose of all major ingredients and all the diets were also measured. Dry matter and gross energy digestibility of the diet was determined using titanium dioxide added to the diet at 0.5% inclusion during the last phase, and we used it as an inert marker. Grab samples were then taken on day 7 of phase 3 from 2 pigs per pen. Samples were then pooled within pen, dried and ground for dry matter, bomb calorimetry, and titanium dioxide concentration. Digestibility values were then calculated using the indirect method, and for the entire experiment, data were analyzed as a completely randomized design using the PROC mix procedure in SAS. Here we have the diets used in the experiment. Basic thing here is we want to note that these diets consisted of only winter wheat and soybean meal, with diets containing over 80 and up to 92% hard red winter wheat with no corn in that diet. As we look at the approximate analysis of the hard red winter wheat as well as the soybean meal, we see normal nutrient specs here going through both ingredients. The main thing I do want to point out here is the 3 different particle sizes of the hard red winter wheat, as we had particle sizes of 728, 579, and 326 for the 3 treatments respectively. It's also important to note that soybean meal did have a particle size of 942. Now, before we get into the growth responses today, I do want to take just a moment to talk about some of the diet characteristics. And here we have bulk density, and then on the horizontal axis here on the bottom, we have the 3 dietary treatments going from left to right as we grind wheat finer. And again, these would be diet bulk densities. We see that as we grind the wheat finer, we have a decrease in diet bulk density. And this would be expected. Flour has a really light diet bulk density, so as we grind that wheat finer, we're getting closer to a flour type characteristic of that feed, and thus we see a lower bulk density. As we look at particle size of the diets, just as you would expect, as you grind wheat, which remember consisted of 80 to 92% of the diet, depending on the phase, we see a decrease in diet particle size as wheat particle size decreases from 728 to 326, with the diet particle size of that last diet being just under 360. Now, as we think about particle size, we need to know that there's an inverse relationship that exists between particle size and angle of repose. Now, for those of you who don't know how we calculate angle of repose, we allow feed to flow freely over a cylindrical surface or a circle. That feed can then flow freely to form a pile. Then doing some mathematical calculations, we can calculate the angle of the pile that is formed. Now, once we know the angle, we can calculate the angle of repose. When we start talking about angle of repose, the larger the angle we associate with decreased flowability. So if we think back, as we look at particle size, as particle size decreased in the diet, we actually see the inverse thing happening here for angle of repose, with angle of repose increasing as particle size is reduced. Now, getting into some of the growth performance here, I do want to take a moment to set up this slide. All the statistics will be located in the upper left-hand corner. We ran both a linear and quadratic contrast statement. Again, here in this slide, we have average daily gain or any other performance criteria here on the vertical axis, and then the 3 dietary treatments here across the bottom. Now, as we look at average daily gain, again, this will only be from day 0 to 40 or 44 to 80 kilograms of diet. We see there was no significant effect of wheat particle size on average daily gain. However, as we look at average daily feed intake, we see that as we grind wheat finer from 728 to 326 microns, we see a significant reduction in average daily feed intake. And because of this, we see a significant improvement of both a linear and quadratic response in feed efficiency. As you go from 728 to 326 microns, we see a significant improvement in feed efficiency with maximum efficiency at 579 microns. Now, as we look at the second phase of the trial from day 40 to 83, as we look at average daily gain, remember we did see no response from day 0 to 40. However, from day 40 to 83, we do see a significant increase or improvement in average daily gain as we grind wheat finer in both a linear and quadratic fashion, with the largest gain being at the finest micron size. And as noted before, we saw a significant reduction in the first phase for average daily feed intake. However, as we get towards the end of the trial, as we look at average daily feed intake, we see no significant differences among the treatments, suggesting that there might have been a palatability issue early on in the trial with the finer ground diets, and these pigs were beginning to acclimate to the treatments. Due to this, again, we do see a significant improvement in a linear fashion in feed efficiency as we grind wheat from 728 to 326 microns. And looking at the overall data, for the overall period, we see no significant effects on wheat particle size on average daily gain. We also see no significant effects of wheat particle size as we grind wheat finer from 728 to 326 microns on average daily feed intake. However, we do see a significant improvement in feed efficiency as you grind that wheat finer in a linear fashion, with the ultimate or maximum feed efficiency being at the finest particle size. As I mentioned earlier, we did do a small digestibility study as part of this experiment, and as we look at dry matter digestibility, as we go from 728 to 326 micron wheat, we see a significant improvement in dry matter digestibility. And then again, we see this same pattern. We see it for gross energy digestibility as we see a significant improvement from grinding wheat finer, a significant improvement in gross energy digestibility. And lastly, I do want to take just a few moments to look at caloric efficiency on both a metabolizable as well as a net energy basis. For those of you who aren't familiar with caloric efficiency, we simply calculate this by taking total caloric content of the diet multiplied by the feed intake and then divide it by total gain. And so as we think about caloric intake, it's important to note, or caloric efficiency, it's important to note that this is more of a feed efficiency number or a feed to gain number, so a smaller number is going to be better. And here we have metabolizable energy in the blue bar and net energy here in the red bar. And as we see, as we grind wheat finer from 728 to 326 microns, we see a significant reduction or a significant improvement in caloric efficiency in a linear fashion as we grind that wheat finer. If we think about this on a kcal basis, we see almost 100 kcal improvement in caloric content of that diet by going from 728 to 326 microns on a net energy basis. So in conclusion today, fine grinding wheat was detrimental to feed intake in early finishing, but improved average daily gain and feed efficiency in late finishing. Dry matter and gross energy digestibility were both improved as wheat was ground finer. And overall, reducing hard red winter wheat particle size had no impact on average daily gain or average daily feed intake. However, we did see significant improvements in feed efficiency, dry matter and gross energy digestibility, as well as caloric efficiency on both the metabolizable and net energy basis. With that, I'd like to thank you for your time and also give appreciation to the National Pork Board for partial funding of this trial. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, you can email myself or give myself a call as well. Thank you.